Hey everyone, it's Clarke here, and I'm back today with another Christmas project, and this is Christmas project number 8. And today I'm going to be making a card, and I'm going to be using some of the products that you see on the screen now, this really pretty Rejoice die, the pine needle border die, and some of the products from Concord and Ninth's Blooms Fill-In bundle. And I'm going to just start off here by stamping out some barn door distress ink on this background stamp from that Concord and Ninth stamp set. And this is just a really gorgeous stamp. I love it. There's so many ways that you can use this with all of the different stamps and so on that come along with this and our companions and the dies and so on. So I'm going to show you one way here with this project today that I used this bundle. So I'm going to ink up my stamp really well here, and I'm going to swing the door of my MISTI shut, and I'm going to do this a few times just to make sure that I've got a really solid impression of that stamped image onto my Bristol Smooth cardstock that I'm using here as my card base. I'm actually going to cut out one of these little images here to put onto the front of my card, which is also going to be Bristol Smooth cardstock. So I'm going to be working on an A2 card here today, and this is just going to be a piece that I'm going to use as part of that. So okay, so this is I believe this is the second time, and I think I'm going to stamp this one more time just to make sure that it's really good and solid. And I'm only going to use part of this piece for this card, but I will set this aside and put this in my stash for subsequent cards that I am going to be making. So this is good. I'm just about done here. Actually, I guess I am going to stamp this out a fourth time. It probably would have been okay just with that third one, but I'm gonna just make sure that it's got a lot of ink on there apparently. So this is gonna take a little bit of time to dry, and I'll do that off camera. Make sure that it's not too juicy still while I'm working on it, so that it's not gonna sort of get all over the place. And now I'm going to be taking this My Favorite Things background stamp, and this one is called, let me think here, this is called the Lined Up Dots, I believe, background stamp from MFT. And I've just taken the little foam insert out of my MISTI here to make room for this rubber stamp. And I'm going to take some Versamark ink and stamp that onto my red inked up background there. And I am going to do some heat embossing using a really pretty iridescent embossing powder from Stampin' Up! And I've had that in my stash for a really long time. I don't know if they still sell it, I'm not sure, but you can probably find a reasonable facsimile out there from Wow Embossing Powder or Hero Arts. If I think of it, I will link it up in the description box below, and I will actually check and see if you can still get that iridescent Stampin' Up! Embossing powder. It is really pretty, and I've had it for a long time, and it's kind of a go-to if you want a little bit of embossing powder that's just going to add some glitter to your project rather than a solid embossing. So I'm going to add this over top of that red, and it's going to stick to the dots that are in that background stamp that I used from My Favorite Things. So I'm just going to put this on here using my coffee filter, and that's a little Nuvo spoon there that you can see. It's got kind of sort of like two different little spoon tools, one on each end, and I'm going to use that to put this embossing powder onto my card. So you can see me just repeatedly doing that and just kind of tapping it off back into my little container. I've just got the coffee filter underneath my little container for my powder here, just so that it catches any of the extra powder, just to keep my work surface kind of more or less tidy and clean. So now that I've got that on there, I'm going to just heat that up, and I just do that off camera, but you can see how pretty that is. It's so glittery and shiny. And now what I did was I just took one of the dies from the Concord and Ninth bundle, and I cut out one of the areas on that background stamp for a focal piece for my card base. So like I said before, I'm going to just put the rest of that background that I stamped up. I'm going to set that aside and use it on another project. And I'm going to use this little section of that piece for the focal point for this card. So you can see all of the other little stamps that come with this bundle. And I'm going to go ahead and take those 3 little leaf portions that fill in the leaf sections that are white right now on that little piece that I've die cut. I'm going to fill those in with these little leaf bits. So I've just taken some Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink, and I'm just stamping that out onto my white cardstock on these little leaf bits. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm going to fussy cut those out, and then I'm going to eventually stick those onto that little piece in the red. Now this is the little, I would say, poinsettia, but it's not really a poinsettia. It's just like a floral piece. It's just a bloom, I guess, a bloom from that same die, Stamp and Die bundle. And I just cut that out with some silver, or using some silver glitter paper. So now I'm going to take that blossom and I'm going to take the little leaf bits and I'm going to stick those down onto my little base here. So I'm going to use some glossy accents just because it is super, super sticky. And when you are sticking down glitter paper or something that is going over top of another medium, so for example, this piece has that embossing powder all over it, and it's been heated so that it's raised, and I want to make sure that these little leaves are going to stick to that. So I use that glossy accents on there to make sure that it's going to stick down and not fall off of there. And glossy accents is probably one of the, well, it's one of the strongest adhesives I have in my adhesive collection, that's for sure. Now I'm going to take this Clarity stencil brush, and I'm going to use some of that same Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink in just a small amount, and I'm going to just take that and sort of use this brush in kind of a circular motion, as you can see, over top of my A2 card base. And I just want to kind of create a little sort of focal area on the front of my card where I'm going to adhere that red die cut piece with the little blossom and the leaves on it. So I don't want it to be too dark, but I want it to be dark enough so that you can just see that color poking out around the edges of this die cut. So I'm just going to continuously go back over that gently and lightly with a small amount of that Lucky Clover ink until I'm happy with the density of the color in that little focal point area. And you just see me brushing back and forth lightly. I'll go back in to the ink and tap some of the ink off onto an extra piece of paper that I've got below my card there. I don't know if you can see it very well. And eventually I get a dark enough space there that I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to take one of my stamp blocks and I'm going to just put a little bit of water on there. I'm going to take my Ranger Perfect Pearls and I'm going to drop a little bit of that onto my block and mix that up with some water and just my tiny little silver watercolor brush. And I'm going to tap some of this really pretty Perfect Pearls onto my card front, just because it is going to add just a whole bunch of really pretty glossy shine that's not super dominant because it doesn't have any color to it, but it just has a lot of really pretty shine. And I'm just going to add some really fine little splatters onto my card front, and it's just going to look really nice with the other little bits of shiny detail with the card. It's just going to see me speed this up a little bit just to finish this process up. And I'm going to give that a little bit of drying time off camera, and now you can see how that is just really pretty and sparkly and shiny on there. At least I hope you can see that, because it's nice. I like it. Now I've got all of those other little bits added to my die cut piece, and I'm just going to try that out over top of my green. Now I'm going to take that Rejoice die that I showed you at the beginning of the video, and I'm going to cut the background part of it out of red and then the scripty part of it out of white cardstock. And then I'm going to just adhere that white scripty part over top of the red background. Now the ink or the glue that I'm using here is the Nuvo glue, and I love it because it dries matte It does not dry shiny, and the applicator on it is perfect. It is super easy to use. It is my new favorite all-purpose adhesive for card making. I really, really like it. And this is the Simon Says Stamp Pine Needle Border Die. And I'm going to die cut this out of some white cardstock, and I'm going to put some of that same Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink onto the die cut with my Ranger Distress tool. And you'll just see me doing that here. I'm going to just put this over top of some, just a scrap piece of white cardstock. And I'm going to just really ink this up nicely, and I want it just as a little accent piece on my card front. So I'm going to add quite a bit of ink to it. In fact, I probably should have let it dry a little bit longer before I used it or worked with it. But anyways, it's fine. I didn't get any ink on my white card base where I didn't want it, so that's good. So this is that same Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink. And I'm going to just get a nice amount of juicy Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink on here. So you'll just see me trying to get, I'm just going to use a little piece of scrap white cardstock there on the end to hold it in place so that I don't completely cover my hands with this green ink. And I don't know, I really think that one of my favorite tools in card making are my tweezers. You'll see me use those plenty of times in this process just because it makes it a lot easier, more simple to put things into place and so on, especially when they have quite a bit of ink on them. So this is just going to be a fine little border at the bottom of my card just to add a little bit of detail down there, and I really like how that looks. I love that die, it's gorgeous. And I ended up die cutting out and inking up 2 of those pieces, and then I cut some of those extra little pine needle pieces for a couple of little accents on my card, and you'll see me do that in a bit. Now I'm just going to pop up that die cut that I created on some foam dots, and now I'm going to take some foam dots and use those to adhere this little die cut piece that says Rejoice on it. So I like how that's looking so far. And now I'm going to take some of those little pine needle pieces, like I said, I'm going to add a little bit of that same Nouveau liquid adhesive and just stick a couple of those on the sides of my die cut. And you'll just see me finishing that up here. And I really like how that just finishes it off. It just adds a little bit of detail on either side of that focal point in the middle of the card. Now I'm going to just take my little hole punch, and I'm going to hole punch out a little green dot from that inked up cardstock from the pine needle border, and I'm going to put that as a little centerpiece in the middle of my little blossom, or my little bloom, I should say. So, I mean, it could be a poinsettia. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It's a Christmas card. People might interpret it as that, and that's fine. It doesn't really look like a poinsettia, but it could be, so we're going to go with that. And it is silver, so it's all good. It's all about the glitter and the shine at Christmas time as far as I'm concerned. So I really love this. I think it's pretty. I'm just going to take a little bit of diamond stickles and put that in those kind of little berry-like circular areas in the foliage. And then I'm going to take my glossy accents and I'm going to add a little bit of shine to the center of my little blossom here and to my leaves. And that is going to be it, guys. I had a lot of fun creating this. It gave me a chance to use a little bit of distress ink and use some of the dyes that I have in my stash and so on and so forth, and create this card, which I think says, hey, it's almost Christmas. Which it is. Wow, we're almost, I guess, just about a month away. So it's crazy. I think it's only 5 weeks. Thanks so much for stopping by, guys. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you another time. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.